Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to episode 8 of the Big Boys Pod. I'm Trevor here alongside my co-host Cole. We're excited to break down a fun weekend of Big Ten games last weekend. Also preview a fun weekend that we'll be taking part in person. Cole can touch a little more on that. How you been this week so far?
I've been good, man. Good so far. Been crazy busy this week. I was actually out of town recruiting this weekend, so didn't get to watch a whole lot of these games. Got to see the back end of things. Looking forward to talking about that Friday night game. I mean, being a Vikings fan, had a tough Thursday night, so I was really hoping for a big Rutgers win on that. I was texting some of my friends about that. I know Justin told me I was crazy for that, so we'll get into it. But kind of like you said, the past couple of weeks have been really good. This week was good. We saw a couple more teams become bowl eligible, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it'll be exciting to see how the Big Ten stays relevant.
Absolutely. Coaching duty's called, man. Took you
Coaching duties called.
Took you away from sitting on the couch duties.
And that's okay. Sometimes you just gotta ride the sidelines. Got to talk to some other cool coaches, and I mean, I'll just say the one thing I can say about sports in general, youth sports, you're not going to learn anything more than you learn in the backyard. So go in the backyard and just have fun with it in any sport, right? Don't let some coach or some dad tell you what to do. Go try it out for yourself in the backyard, right? And we've seen some big teams do it, and that's why they're winning games.
Let's say you think a guy like Woody Marks has been doing that on that Rutgers USC game. If we want to kick it off with that one here,
I was
Friday night.
So maybe we could talk about him. Woody Marks did have a great night on that last Friday.
Uh-huh.
So I was looking for a big Rutgers win here. They were like plus 400, and I just kind of fell into that. I was like, this could be interesting. And then I'm looking at my phone, and halftime scores 28-12. So final score ended up being USC 42. Rutgers Scarlet Knights scoring 20.
Mm-hmm.
Like we talked about, a couple of teams have had this UCLA, USC, SoCal cross-country trips back-to-back. Rutgers' turn this week to close that out. And it seems like the travel just got to him, and more so Miller Moss just got comfortable, man.
Yeah.
Back on the Miller Moss train for sure, with the 2 touchdowns. And like a touchdown run in, right? So plus over 300 yards. But yeah, Woody Marks was the prime outlet for Moss that day with 15 carries, 3 touchdowns, 15 carries of it, some 94 yards. He had some good looks too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was a fun one. This one came on after the World Series, so I was watching the World Series. Game 1 would have been Friday night, and that's this LA New York matchup. LA gets the game 1 win. They're actually playing right now. Hopefully my background it doesn't pick it up too much. But then you got the LA New York Big Ten teams almost in a way, with Rutgers being in the New York area and USC just up the road from Dodger Stadium there. LA came on top in this one again, like you said, 42-20 final score, and USC was just in control for this one from the start. They opened up that 28-12 lead at halftime. Like you said, it was all 4 of their possessions in the first half ended with a touchdown. And just when you open up that first half lead, you kind of put the game on cruise control and go from there. They took care of business. I think they look good doing it. Woody Marks, like you said, really big day for him. We've been a Miller Moss pod. We're going to stay being a Miller Moss pod. And it's games like this is the reason why. Just looking like a leader out there, and a good comeback for them after a few rough last few weeks for them.
Definitely.
So
I do want to say about this game, no one scored in the fourth quarter. So after the very end of that third quarter, the score is 20-42, and that was that, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, kind of weird that no one capitalized in the end of that game. It kind of ended abruptly in that sense, but at the same time, I mean, USC had plenty of good looks, and they're back to chugging along like we know they can.
Absolutely. Last thing I want to mention about this one, that USC defense looked pretty stout, actually. So new defensive coordinator this year, Danton Lynn, brought him over from UCLA, actually.
Okay.
Kind of proving who maybe feels like they're the big brother in that rivalry.
Definitely.
Kind of a problem for them going to this game was quarterback pressure, and they led all of their games this season with 4 sacks on the night. So getting to Calais McManus, making his night really tough, kind of really helped to put them in that position to have their offense go to work and get some big stops. It's a pretty banged up defense, which we talked about last week a little bit. So good for them to take advantage there. You got anything else on this one?
No, good for them. Good for them. I do want to say, I do think they might be looking to be bowl eligible with the next couple games they have with this fourth win. I think that does kind of change how that locker room attacks this last half of the season.
Yep.
So we'll talk more about that later in the preview. But another team that capitalized and actually is now bowl eligible, Ohio State. The Ohio State Buckeyes hosting Nebraska on Saturday morning. Final score 17-21. Nebraska was actually leading this game in the fourth quarter. Trevor, what do you have to say about this?
Yeah, I mean, they almost got him. There was a late pick there by Aroa that kind of closed out the Ohio State win, but they kind of just hung around there, kind of just biting ankles the first 3 quarters of that game, had 3 field goals, and then Raiola led a really good fourth quarter drive there and had the 2-point conversion to cap it off, put them up 17-14. Gave Ohio State the ball back with, I think, about 6.5 minutes. And Will Howard and Quinshawn Judkins and Jeremiah Smith, I mean, we know what these guys can do. We've seen it this season.
Yeah. Right.
They struck back, came out to that 21-17 lead. It was still like 2.5 minutes. So they had the 2-minute warning on their side. I think they had a couple timeouts, but Raiola just couldn't get it done through an interception, just kind of over the middle of the field, just kind of hung one out there. And Ohio State held on, but looked a little rusty maybe after that tough Oregon loss, but maybe just kind of shed some of that rust off, hopefully, because they got a big matchup this weekend. They'll talk about more later. But a really good showing for Nebraska, I think. I mentioned Judkins, and him and Travion Henderson combined. That two-headed snake in the backfield has been really good this season. Nebraska made them – they were quiet. 54 yards combined between the two of those guys, who are 2 of the best running backs in the Big Ten. So even though you lose, I think that's it's a big step forward for Nebraska still from even that Indiana game a few weeks ago, and definitely where this program was at, a year ago, 2 years ago, kind of their last decade here, that they're able to hang with some of these top echelon Big Ten teams.
Totally. I mean, you summed all that up really well. I do think it's interesting to see a Matt Rule team bounce back after a big loss like that. Over the years, you kind of see him respond really well to that, and I'm sure that it was tough to lose this game, but still, this is like a really good loss on paper, right? When we break these things down later, Nebraska surely will find their way into a bowl. They're just 5-3 now. But yeah, I mean, I think now like Ohio State's on the back heel, and they're going to be going into a big game this week, right? Where they have to win and they have to show out, because if they lose, this changes everything for them. I'm sure even though they're 6-1, Ohio State fans are sitting around and feeling like they're still not there. And this probably adds to that, right? The fact that Nebraska and Raiola was able to have some success. And then, like you said, that defense just shut them down. Dude.
Yeah.
And at home, too. I mean, got a little quiet at some points in the horseshoe. Buckeye Stadium.
Yeah, I mean, with the noise, I think it was maybe the loudest it's been there in the fourth quarter in a few years. I guess maybe the last time Michigan was in town, but you see a lot of the time their fans starting to leave with expecting another big win, and Ohio State's up big late in the fourth quarter, and that place gets quiet. But it was rocking well into that game, which if you're an Ohio State fan, maybe you're a little nervous, but at the same time, getting fun home games like that is always a good time.
Totally.
And they pulled it out, so good for them, and kind of keep their season rolling here.
Yep.
Got anything else on this one?
I really don't. I do have something to say about that next game that happened right after, if we want to get into it.
Yeah, Washington, Indiana.
Washington, Indiana.
Kicks off.
Final score 17-31. I gotta go out and say it. The fact that Indiana is not a top 10 team is ludicrous at this point.
I agree with you.
This isn't even me being from like an Iowa bias fan. Like the Iowa State ranking makes no sense when the Hoosiers are 8-0 in this great conference. This isn't just a story anymore or a impressive front half run. This is a top 10 team in the country playing crazy well. playing crazy well with guys missing, pieces missing, because it's just Cignetti season. I don't know if you saw the towels they had, but they were like cigarette style with like the bar. It's like Cignetti. Man, the Renaissance is here, and we are living in it, and it's happening in Bloomington.
Yeah. I mean, he's got to be front runner for Coach of the Year at this point. I mean, I think they could lose out from here, and I think just getting this program to this point right now, and the way they've looked, I mean, there's no way they lose out the way they've been playing. But hypothetically, the turnaround job has been very impressive and very amazing to witness here. Part of that witnessing, I texted you this on Saturday. It was a tweet, and you had to click on it to open the video. I don't know if you clicked on it. It didn't seem like you did at first. There was a pick six that Indiana had, and the cameraman did an amazing job of just like zooming out as he's streaking down the field, nobody around him, and just the place was going nuts. The Cignetti towels flying.
You did send me that.
People just rocking, just so excited to see a good competitive football team there. It's been too long for a lot of those Hoosier faithful. Such a big win. I mean, I'm still so hyped on this team. I think it's been a fun ride to be on. Watching it from podcast perspective, and then just as a football fan in general too. You love seeing teams like this get going. So into the game, what are your takeaways from the game? I guess.
I mean, just from like a performance standpoint, Will Rogers, 202 yards, 2 interceptions. I mean, he's had his good days and had his bad days for sure this season. And I'm not here to like throw flack at him or anything. I think it just goes to show the parity in this league and how good some of the defenses are, and that any quarterback or any backup quarterback at this point in this league, right, can make or break a team's day, right? And on top of that, Coleman only had 104 yards in the backfield. Like, hard to win a game when you can't get stuff started in the air, and the ground game's not going for you. So another reason why I think Indiana being ranked at 13 or whatever they are now is like just inappropriate.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. I talked about this last weekend with Curtis Rourke having that injury, ended up having surgery on that hand. So I don't know what his timetable is for return, but Taven Jackson.
I assume it's the rest of the year he's gone.
Yeah.
Like, the hand is so complicated that you don't want to hurt it again.
Yeah. Kind of my fault for not doing my homework with the show here to see kind of what that looks like. But what I mentioned is, he had to go down right before halftime last week, but we saw Taven Jackson come in and play really well. And he did that really well again this past weekend. Had one passing touchdown, one on the ground. Only, about 150 yards, but they weren't really asking him to do much with that deep running back room that we've talked about many times, picking up the slack, led by Justice Ellison back there. Gave him the rock 29 times, picked up 123 yards and had a touchdown. So big game for him, big game for that offense, just coming out with that win. And then on the defensive side, I actually have a special shout out to make, my big boy of the week. Talked about a little bit before with that pick six, but that was done by the one and only D'Angelo Pons. That was actually one of his 2 interceptions on the day. Had a couple big pass breakups too, making life difficult for Will Rogers. A lot of the reason I'm giving it to him is just to kind of spread the love around this Indiana team. A big performance too, and such a cool moment, I think, with that camera shot. I'm going to be thinking about that for years. I think whoever the camera director was for Fox Sports there did a great job.
He got a bonus for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. But just such a good, cool moment for him, and just kind of shine a spotlight on this Indiana defense that's really shown just as much as their offense. I mean, their margin of victory is like 30 points or something this season. So obviously their offense is scoring, but to have a margin like that, your defense also needs to make some big stops, and they've been doing that. So D'Angelo Pons, my big boy of the week. See how many picks he gets this week. Maybe 5 or 6. Set a Big Ten record.
Nice. Let's go. I mean, listen, they have some interesting games to round out the rest of their season. We could see an undefeated Hoosiers team. We could see a 1-loss Hoosiers team. We'll see what happens here. So next game after that, anything else about that one?
No, that's all. Yep.
Yeah, okay. Well, something else I kind of want to talk about, this Ducks team. So Illinois flew out to the far west, Big Ten far west, for the Oregon Ducks game. They're also 8-0 now, beating them 38-9. I mean, Dylan Gabriel can do what he wants, whatever he wants, picking apart any program. I wanted to bring this up earlier, but this is the perfect game for it. Really is the iceberg of the Big Ten right now and how good these teams are. This is the 20th team in the country, right? And we're talking about IU being somewhere in between, Penn State, Ohio State. Oregon's picking apart anyone.
Yeah.
Whenever, however. Dylan Gabriel, 3 touchdowns, some really awesome running plays, really, where he got physical. Like, you just love to see a QB get involved like that. And spreading the love, Johnson, 102 yards, and one of those touchdown receptions. So they never really looked back once it got started. And not to Illinois' fault, but it just goes to show how good Oregon is.
Yeah, they came out blazing. It was 35-3 at halftime, and group chat, somebody just goes, "Whoa, Illinois is getting smoked." And I was flipping back and forth from that game and the next game we'll talk about here in that 2:30 time slot. And I was like, yeah, that's not looking good for him. With Dylan Gabriel, he is looking like a Heisman frontrunner right now. I know he's been in the conversation. There's still a lot of guys across the country that kind of have their name in the hat right now, and he definitely deserves to be there. So he actually he's within 2,000 career passing yards of Case Keenum for most in D1 history. After that game, they asked him about it post game, what he thought about that achievement. He set some other some record, Oregon record or something like that through however many games. And I think they asked him that the Oregon's now sitting 8-0 for the first time in 11 years, the 2013 season. They're listing all these numbers to him. This is what he had to say. He goes, "I'm chasing wins, dude. That's where I'm at." And just that mentality we talked about with Coach Signetti earlier in the year, that Google me, I win. And Dylan Gabriel out here, I'm chasing wins, dude. It's like, I want to see those two go face to face in Indianapolis. I think that'd be a fun Big Ten game. The way these teams are rolling right now, just winners, and he looks like a winner right now, and good for them. Justifiably the number 1 team in the country, I think.
Justifiably, I think they're an A++ right now, number 1. It's been kind of crazy to see their turnaround, I guess, since the start of the year. If you really look back in that Boise State game and everything in between, but yeah, they're undisputed number 1. I did say last week I thought this game was going to be a lot closer, and I thought that Illinois would only be a few scores away, and that just got shut down immediately. And that's just why I think the iceberg goes so much deeper, and Oregon is just a monster waiting to be stopped by some force. So we'll see who that force is, but
if there is one.
If there is one.
Yeah. All right, next 2:30 game here, we got our Iowa Hawkeyes. We're hosting the Northwestern Wildcats. This was kind of a fun one. 2 of the big transfer portal transfers into the Hawkeye football program this offseason were from Northwestern. Wide receiver Jacob Gill, and then what was backup quarterback Brendan Sullivan. That's what I wanted to kick this off with. We finally saw him get some action. Cade McNamara went down with an injury. It sounds like a concussion from what I've seen this week. At the time, that wasn't reported. And a lot of people think he just got benched, kind of got banged up on a play and took a series or two for those symptoms to kind of show up. So always better safe than sorry with head injuries like that. But got to see Sullivan finally, really get more than just those red zone drives. And I think he really opened up the offense, and it was a big 40-14 win for the Hawkeyes and really dominant performance on Saturday. Kind of feels like that Washington game a few weeks ago that we were so stoked on them again for after that. So, what is your takeaway from this one?
No, I'm glad you brought it up because I was going to bring it up. I think it's quite ironic, and I'm sure there's actually a lot of emotions involved in this game with Sullivan. So the fact that he was able to, collect himself, go out there against the former program. He lost that starting job in the spring, man. Yeah. That was like a spring ball action. So he's here, willing to be in that back pocket of Cade, just ready to go. And he showed up, right? So 9 for 14, 79 yards, looked very confident. And that's what I like to see. I like to see that we're adding wrinkles to our offense this deep in the year.
Yep.
And I don't think Cade's a bad player. I think he's just had a really tough stretch. And I think there's just been some kind of out of luck moments. But man, if he's not the number one in the country, he's the number 2 running back in the country. Caleb Johnson just gets it done.
Yeah, absolutely.
Week in and week out. So 109 yards, 3 touchdowns. He is this close to breaking one of my favorite Hawkeyes of all time, Sean Green's record of 20 touchdowns in a season. He's got 16. I mean, I didn't think it was going to happen, and then he scored 3, obviously. So anything can happen. Still enough games. He's on pace for it.
Yep.
And that's not scary. That's awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it was a big game for him, but he finished with those 109 yards on just 14 carries, which is absurd. And that, the yards per carry is like on the season still like 7.5
it's
through
nuts.
8 games. It's crazy. But he started the game with 7 carries and just 4 yards. So you want to flip that on its head. He started the game 7 carries, 4 yards, and then had 7 carries for 105 yards. Just completely opened up. And that only happened after Brendan Sullivan came in. I think that's kind of the Brendan Sullivan effect, where he's a mobile quarterback. He looked very confident back there. Very athletic guy, like sneaky wheels once he gets going. Where Caleb Johnson even said in his post game, they're giving him all his flowers again. And he goes, it's not just me. He's like, when Brendan came in, like they couldn't just key me. They had to key him too, just with what he's able to do. And the effect was evident there. Really let Caleb loose. So yeah, I was very happy with how this game went as an Iowa fan. If you're a Northwestern fan, you swap quarterbacks halfway through the game. Jack Lausch started the game. Really wasn't working out too well. Went to Helinski for the second half there. They combined for 15 for 27, just 120 yards. Once that Iowa defense really got rolling. Got a safety at one point. First time since 2022. Felt good. We love safeties.
Good for Iowa. I was going to say something that we've actually kind of sorely missed. Seems like we always get a handful every year. So I didn't know that even since 2022. But that makes sense. That's why probably I felt so good waking up the next morning. Anything else to really say about this game? I'll talk a little bit more about the Hawks and the offense when it gets to this game. End of the episode, we got some fun stuff for sure.
Yep.
But we'll keep chugging along with the next game. The Maryland Terps going out to play the Gophers.
Your guy.
I think my guy Brosmer for sure. I love both these teams really.
Yeah.
And I think I don't remember, and I didn't pre-watch last week's episode for this. I mean, like, I felt like I was kind of hoping the Terps would be a little bit closer, and I thought they would be, especially after the game they had the week before. But once again, when the tie on PJ Fleck is done right, man, and the boats are rowing, and Brosmer's got his helmet on, no one's stopping the Minnesota Golden Gophers. So, Maryland sure as hell could not. 443 total yards of offense. No turnovers, so practically like a perfect game. Granted, Maryland had 400 yards of offense as well, right? But the fact that Gophers capitalized over and over and over again, I mean, scoring 34 points to 10 at half, I mean, just no looking back.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they opened this game up 21-0. It was Maryland's first drive was they went for a 4th down and didn't get it. So then Minnesota got the ball struck really quick. First of Max Brosmer's 4 touchdown passes on the day. I think another punt or something by Maryland, got the ball back. Another touchdown pass by Brosmer. And then an unfortunate pick 6 from Billy Edwards Jr., who I was saying has been having a really quietly good season on just last week's show. Kind of struggled a little bit. Still had quite a number of yards, but no touchdowns and 2 picks on the day. Pick 6 there kind of got them in that 21-zip hole in the first quarter and just really couldn't climb from there. This game was 48-10 late. And so 48-23 is a little deceptive of a final score. With some garbage time points from Maryland. But yeah, Minnesota just controlled this game and looked really good.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have much more to say than that. Than Minnesota's rolling. I think that was their 5th win, so they're going to be
3rd straight too.
Yeah. So and they've had that quick blip in the middle of the season where they lost a couple, but the Gophers are legit. Especially when they're playing bowl games, they're legit. Especially under PJ Fleck, they're legit. They still have, I believe, 1 or 2 bowl or trophy games left. Definitely
got at least one, yeah.
So yeah, and we'll be getting into that eventually. But good to see the Gophers cooking. Really good to see them almost scoring 50 points.
Yeah.
And like you said, even more deceptive with that final 13. But good for the Gophers. Tough for the Terps. I think Maryland has had a better season already than they kind of expected. Or I don't want to say that because expected is not the right word there, but they've just kind of been on the tough end of it. And someone's got to be on the lower half of this league.
Yeah, still sitting at 4-4, so I think still a good chance to get bowl eligible, but just kind of treading water, it seems like, right now.
Yeah, treading water.
Anything else from you on that one?
No, not really. I'm actually excited to get into this next one, this Penn State Wisconsin game.
Yeah,
that also had a kind of a crazy storyline with a backup quarterback coming in. So Drew Aller getting hurt. Well, first off, Penn State scores 28 to Wisconsin's 13, so they win, stay ranked. Good for them. They were losing at one point in this game.
Losing at halftime.
And they lost Drew Aller.
Yeah.
Right. So
right before half.
So probably I don't know what was said in that locker room, but it was enough to give my big boy of the week and the Penn State win to Bo Pribula. Okay, the fact that he was willing to go out there and keep it together. We've talked a lot about how good this Wisconsin team is. They're 5-3. They play smash mouth football. They were winning. They were winning. Okay. And Bo Pribula walked out there and said, I don't care anymore. Right. It's my turn. He said that he actually prepares for every week like he is going to be the starter. And some people might call that delusional, but Coach James Franklin says that's a culture win, and that's why they won, because they have the next guy ready.
Yeah.
And as a coach, I mean, James Franklin is a goofball, but I can't agree with that mentality more. And the fact that you have role players and guys like him ready to go. He got 1 touchdown on the day, nothing too crazy, but the fact that he turned it around and changed the narrative of that game, good for him. Good for the Lions. Good for Bo. Congrats on the big boy of the week.
Nice. Yeah, that's a good pick. Just for that, like you said, that next man up mentality, and be able to step into that high pressure situation. I mean, Wisconsin on the road at night too, like that is not a fun place to play and handling that pressure.
I wouldn't want to play them, and we're actually going to have to play them this week in the same setting.
Yeah, fortunately we get them at home, but it's going up to Camp Randall there is no fun. So yeah, Pribula had a huge back-to-back touchdown drives that he led there. I don't know if you saw his stat line or read his stat line right there. Sorry, but 11 for 13. 98 yards and a touchdown, and ran it 6 times for 28 yards as well. So really just taking care of the ball and dishing it out to his guys led him to that win. I mean, last week we both said, I think you picked Wisconsin, and I was very cautiously picking Penn State and thought they'd cover that 6.5 point spread. I was feeling really good about our picks at halftime. And then you get this backup quarterback in and just, kind of shuts them up. 28-13 is a pretty comfortable win. So from that standpoint, I think a very well-deserved big boy of the week there.
Yeah, no, I think it was awesome. One other guy I want to shout out on the Badgers, Toby Walker, had a touchdown, but really just got stifled by the Penn State defense. 22 carries, 59 yards. So he's averaging less than 3 a carry. And we know he's way better than that. He is better than that, but that's just how good the Lions are.
Yeah, and that defense we've talked about a lot, especially earlier in the season, how good that Penn State D is. I noted that down too. I used a different ST word. You got stifled. I had stuffed. Man was just stuffed all night.
That's a good one. It's coming close to Thanksgiving too. So
yeah.
I like it.
And that forced Braden Locke to throw a little bit, and we talked about him now that he's had to step into that starting role and handled that really well. But forced him to throw as much as he did, 42 attempts completed 22 of them and just had one pick, but I think that shows not just how good that Penn State rushing defense is, shutting down Tawi Walker, but how good that pass defense is, and just as a unit, how good they've looked this season. So big win for them, keeps them up in the top 3 in rankings this week. It sets up a really fun matchup versus Ohio State this weekend that we'll get into very shortly here. Got one last game to cover from Saturday, unless you got anything else on that one.
No, I mean, really, just we are right now. That's all there is to say.
Yeah.
Whether you like it or not, they're kind of in the driver's seat right behind the Ducks. So different car though, different car, that's for sure. But no, let's get into this last game. You start off.
Yeah, this one got chippy, like we've known it to get the last few years. Well, I guess last year's was quiet. Michigan just dominant last year, but 2 years ago, you had that tunnel scuffle there, led to like an arrest and multiple suspensions and just big fight. We saw almost the same situation play out at the end of this one. Teams exchanging some words and exchanging some punches in the middle of the field as this game ended. We're talking about Michigan State, if you weren't aware. Michigan did pull this one out 24-17, so now it's 3 straight wins for them in this series. Bitter in-state rivalry. Those games can get like that. And it was a close back and forth game, so I think that maybe fed into that a little bit too. Michigan coach Sherrone Moore said it was unacceptable. He's kind of got to do that. But yeah, I mean, game-wise,
it kind of was unacceptable for a couple reasons. I don't know. I'm not trying to cut you off.
No, go ahead.
I did look, or I might have heard it when I was doing some research for this week. I believe they're in the 130 something percentile for like red zone efficiency. We've talked about how Aiden Childs is raw and developing and this and that, and we vouched for him over and over again. They missed the chance to hit the chip on the first drive, right? They missed the first field goal. That hurts. You can't do stuff like that in the in-state rivalry games. We, as Iowa fans, know stuff like that is how you lose games, close games, and that's kind of what happened here. So no, I wasn't meaning to cut you off, but yeah, and there's already so much blood between these teams. I mean, like, wherever they play, you're going to see the center logo get cleated and stomped on. Michigan State usually walks from end to end, like arms locked. And we've seen that become like a physical issue before as players stand in between. So it was a good game. It was chippy to watch back and forth. But it is unacceptable now. And those are the jobs those are the wins that kind of like keep your job in Michigan State or have you pack in your bags.
Absolutely. I think Jonathan Smith gets a little bit of leeway just with his first year. And obviously we've seen a lot of turnaround with that team. But
Totally.
There are some things they need to clean up for sure. And Michigan seems to have cleaned up quite a bit. They looked a lot better than they have. Davis Warren came back in for a start after the Jack Tuttle injury. So, yeah, I mean, it's been a really weird team to kind of follow this season, the Michigan Wolverines, but back up to 5-3, kind of turned their season around after that recent slide. Got a big one this week. So we'll see where they kind of go from here.
I think both these teams have a lot more in the tank, or obviously a higher ceiling than we've even seen really this year. And I don't know if there's enough time left for them to show that to America or to their fans, right? What the top can be. But regardless, gotta keep winning out. Michigan now 5-3, right? 5-3, so yeah. one more and they're bowling. 4-4 for Michigan State. They're close too. So that really wraps it up. Do you have anything else about last week's review?
I don't know. Another week where we kind of get to figure things out with how these standings shake out, which we'll get into here. I can break down. Do want to note UCLA and Purdue were off this last week, so not ignoring two of the lower teams in the Big Ten this season. So
no, sure, and we loved Ethan Garbers. He earned that week off.
Yeah, and hopefully they'll be coming out and ready to strike again this week. Taking a look at the standings, though, got 3 teams tied up at the top. Indiana, Oregon, and Penn State all undefeated still. Got OSU sitting OSU sitting with 1 loss in the conference. We have a couple other teams, quite a few teams actually, sitting with 2 losses. Illinois, Iowa, Michigan, Minnesota, Wisconsin, all now at 3-2 in Big Ten play. Nebraska, Michigan State, Washington, all at 2-3. USC at 2-4. Good for them to get that win and kind of turn around a little bit, like we talked about. Some 1-4 teams: Northwestern, UCLA, Maryland, and Rutgers. And Purdue still looking for that first win, sitting at 0-4. I think anywhere after those first 4 teams, those undefeated and 1-loss teams, any of those 2 or 3 loss teams can really get shaken up any which way still, I think. That's what's been really fun about this conference this year. And then you kind of have that bottom tier settle in right now. It's kind of how we broke it down last week. Is there any updates maybe to those tiers that you think were evident after this week of games?
I think what is evident is Washington is a bottom half team, however way you cut it. Rutgers is got some really good players, but just is not able to get the wins, and unfortunately those are stacking up, and now that's why they're at the bottom right there with a 1-4. But really, I think right now it's kind of a 1-2 punch between the Hoosiers and the Ducks, right? You could theoretically, I know this might be stupid, but they could both be number 1 in the country, however you cut it, right? They're both undefeated, 8-0, ridiculous point scoring. In fact, Indiana scored 372 points compared to Ducks 280. So like, we want to talk about offenses, and we can give flowers to Dylan Gabriel all day long, but the bench runs deep on both ends of this, right? So it'll be interesting to see how this shakes out. I really hope they end up meeting Indianapolis. I kind of think they will, based on some of these games with the rest of the conference and how they shake out. But no, I mean, there's the top 4, and then there's some classics in there, and then there's the teams who are having the rougher year.
Absolutely. So with the standings update, let's get into some of these Week 10 matchups.
Yeah, totally.
Missing out.
One thing that isn't happening. No, sorry. The one thing that isn't happening this week is no Friday game this week.
So I was about to say, yeah, World Series is stealing that.
Okay,
so possible, that's a good thing. Possible Game 6, if it goes that far, will be Friday night. So Fox is skipping their Friday night game this week. So we're just starting off. We'll start, big noon. Why not? That's the big one this weekend. We've mentioned it a few times already. Jump right into Ohio State going on the road to Penn State.
Let's do it. Yeah, I mean, the game I think America's looking forward to. I know it's not the biggest. It's not the Ohio State Michigan, but it's still probably the second biggest rivalry. However you want to cut this, is gonna be big. I said it earlier. I think that Ohio State is kind of in the back pedal, and they're gonna have to not lose this game to have a chance to play meaningful, deep season ball or get a good standing. However you want to cut it.
Yep.
Same point, though, we just saw Drew Aller go down. How does this affect the guy who's right behind him, who I just thought had a great year or a great week, who said all year he's been preparing like the number 1 and got it done? It's very interesting how both these teams are kind of meeting in the middle of the roads here for this matchup, because I don't think either of them are what they thought they'd be at this point. So it's going to be interesting. I think Penn State wins. I do. I think there's just a lot of juice in that locker room, the culture. I think the way you look at kind of by transition property, how Ohio State barely squeaked out against Nebraska, and Nebraska got stomped by the Hoosiers, that could say something. That might be looking a little too deep into the mathematics, but that's where I'm at.
Yeah. Ohio State is favored in this one by 3.5 on the road, so that's pretty big.
They are.
With such a tight line like that, you kind of go either way. I do feel like Ohio State takes care of business in this one. I think that offense has so much firepower. Now, granted, like you said, Nebraska was able to kind of slow them down a little bit. I wonder how much of that was rust kind of after that tough Oregon loss and having to pick up the pieces a little bit. And maybe having that game where I'm coming out with picking Ohio State, I feel like maybe that was a bit of a wake-up call for head coach Ryan Day and the rest of the Buckeyes players to be like, hey, this weekend's going to be a lot tougher than that. Let's take care of work and have a good, tough week of practice. Make the little trek out to State College there and play a lot better and take care of business here and still be where they want to be. I mean, like you said, they're not where they maybe wanted to be. This is a roster that probably expected to be number one in the country and has the talent to do so, and taking that loss is really tough. If that game goes the other way, that Oregon game a few weeks ago, we're talking about Oregon being the justifiable number one team in the country. If that's Ohio State, that'd be them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So,
right.
If I'm head coach Ryan Day, I'm saying, come on, boys, let's not lose sight of the bigger picture. We got to get these wins in front of us. We got banged up a little bit last week. Put it behind you. Go out and get the win. And I like Ohio State to take care of business in this one. I think it'll be a close one. I think Penn State could still be there. A playoff at-large team for sure, one of the top 12 come the end of the season. But I think Ohio State's just maybe a class above and still has some Indy aspirations at this point.
Totally fair. We'll see if Ohio State offensive tackle, who went down actually in the Nebraska game, returns, Zen Mikowski. Mm-hmm. He's a big piece of how that offense runs and stays comfortable. So like we said, role players in both of these very deep locker rooms will affect this game. Exciting noon kickoff.
Yep.
A couple other noon games. Fox Sports 1, we got Minnesota Golden Gophers going to play number 24, Illinois. I still think they're worth to be ranked. Minnesota's probably receiving votes or deep on the short list of that, especially after Brosmer's weekend. I think just head-to-head wise, you put Altmaier on a good day versus a Brosmer's average day. Brosmer's still probably coming out right now. He's just got the campus feel, the juice, like the Big Ten, like juice is
back
flowing.
In those old NCAA games, like on the PS2, you had your campus popularity. Are you saying his
That's
bar is
maxed
out? His is maxed out right now.
Brosmer's is maxed out, and, right? Everyone on campus wants to be him or wants to hang out with him. So, no, but it's cool to see how they've kind of turned it around. Like you said, a couple back-to-back wins now, chugging along. Illinois couldn't really get anything started last week against the best team in the country. So we'll see what happens when they play. I don't want to say an average Joe, but another fair fight in the conference.
Yeah, I think that's a good way of putting it. What I was going to say is I don't think that's anything to lose sleep over necessarily if you're the Fighting Illini. It kind of proved you're not one of the best teams in the country or the best team in the country, but not many teams are. I mean, there's a reason you have kind of that upper tier of maybe any given year 3, 4, 5 college football programs. So you're not quite there, but you're still number 24, and I think they're, if you ignore maybe that top end, they're the cream of the crop of this mid-tier of Big Ten teams right now. In Minnesota, not an average Joe by any means. We've seen them play really well, but more of a fair fight. So much so that they're actually favored on the road in this one by 3. That Minnesota on that 3-game win streak, Vegas is liking them. Feel like they've been getting hot too. Maybe Brosmer's kind of figuring out here a little bit. With this one, I do like Illinois in this one. I think that home field advantage will be huge. I don't know if there's a homecoming, if that was maybe a couple weeks ago when they did those fun helmets. But I like them at home here and to recover. Obviously, Oregon, it's maybe a class above, but this is still a good team. And I like Oregon.
Illinois,
sorry.
Yeah, no, you're good. It is going to be, I think, the opposite. I think it's going to be the Gophers. Like you said, it's a close one with that 3 spread. But we'll be splitting this one. I think this is a good game to watch or bounce back and forth with that other noon game.
Absolutely. All right, one more noon game here. This one maybe bounce to a little less. Just check in on how some of these teams are doing. Northwestern 3-5 on the season, going on the road to play Purdue at 1-6 in West Lafayette. Northwestern favored by just 1 point. So really just take this either way you want. Purdue's even on money line. So really no Vegas favorite in this one. We've seen Northwestern get battered quite a few times. We've also seen them challenge a team like Illinois with that overtime game a few weeks back. But I do like Northwestern this one. They had a really good first half versus Iowa. And if it wasn't for the Brendan Sullivan substitution there, then I think that game maybe was a lot closer than 40-14. And we've seen Northwestern have some really good games versus other Big Ten teams like Maryland 2 weeks ago. So I like Northwestern, and I feel like it'll be tough sledding for Purdue to find that Big Ten dub. Hopefully it falls at one point. This is one of their better opportunities to do it. Maybe you think they do this weekend. What are your thoughts?
Well, it's one of their last ones too, so they only got so much more track left on their train, so to speak. But I think Northwestern can handle this. I think the fact that it's like a 1-point spread, kind of how America doesn't want to touch it or watch it. Mm-hmm. It would be cool to see Purdue get a conference win, right?
Yeah.
And see just kind of everyone get a little bit action this year, but that's all up to them. And that's the good part and the bad part, right? Is they're in control of their destiny right now. And we'll see. I mean, it could really go either way. I'm picking Northwestern.
All right. Unanimous decision there for that one. Moving on to these 2:30 slated games. We got some big fun matchups with these undefeated teams at 2:30. CBS got first pick, and they took Oregon traveling out to Ann Arbor for their first visit there and taking on the Michigan Wolverines. So had that big win, maybe turn around their season a little bit. Now they run into the nonstop freight train, that unstoppable force or whatever you called them earlier, that is the Oregon Ducks. They're favored by 14.5 on the road in this one. I like Oregon to keep rolling. That Michigan defense is good and can make some big stops, but if Gabriel's going to be the Heisman frontrunner, we think he is, then I think it should be no problem for him. Like he said himself, I'm on winning mode or whatever.
He's hunting wins.
Yeah,
he's
wins.
eating W's. Yeah. Dude, we've had, I mean, not college related, but Jameis Winston this past weekend. I mean, QBs are just in absolute. They're peaking right now.
Yeah.
All across football, they're peaking with their quotes.
Quote game moments. Better than the passing game, maybe.
So, exactly. Hey, that's not a bad place to be, especially when you're number one, right? That says a lot about your quotes. But I think the spread here could be tricky. I think it could be like a 10-point game. I still think Oregon handles business no problem. I know it's the big house. I know they got a ton of seats. I don't really think Oregon cares about that. They've played the big games already, right? So this is just another game. Dan Lanning said, who cares that they're number one? And I think their locker room is looking for something way bigger than just this. So I think if Michigan wins this, that would be crazy. I think we'd see the field get absolutely stormed. But the Ducks are wearing these crazy chrome uniforms this week. Yeah. And I don't think you wear something like that at number one and lose. That's for sure.
You look like a fool if you do. So better back it up.
Exactly.
Anything over from you on that one?
No, that's really it. I mean, good quarterback matchup here. I'd like to see Warren kind of clean up, see if he can get some good looks. But the safeties and the back end of that Oregon defense, it's a no-fly zone.
Yeah, only for them. Ducks country.
Duck. If it looks like a duck and it sounds like a duck, it's probably a duck.
Quack quack. Ducks will roll 9-0. You've heard it here first.
There we go.
Another potential 9-0 team playing at 2:30. Indiana goes up to East Lansing to take on the Spartans. This one's on Peacock at 2:30. They're favored by 7.5 on the road. They've yet to even win a game by 7.5, or I think their tightest game this season was just last weekend, 31-17. The way they've been winning these games, so. Not getting a lot of love from Vegas still, despite being 8-0 and maybe a little underranked at number 13. We've seen what they can do versus mid-tier Big Ten programs like Nebraska, and I think Michigan State kind of fits in that category too. Getting another 56-point route like they did a couple weeks ago. That doesn't happen every day, but I like Indiana to keep going. I mean, I think the biggest question mark still is Curtis Rourke being out. If Taven Jackson can play at that level, he's very serviceable. But if Michigan State can get some big stops, and if it's a close one, we've seen what their kicker could do, and maybe hit one late. But I like Indiana. It's still rolling this one and keep their undefeated dream season going. Where are you at?
I think Taven Jackson is legit. I think they have nothing to worry about. Even though he is like a sophomore, he's played the games, he's figuring it out. I think this is a good opportunity for him to kind of embolden that or solidify that, legitimize his talents. At the same time, Michigan State, close but no cigar so many times, being this team that just like can't get it done when they get close to the red zone or in the red zone. So all it takes is just one afternoon for those things to start clicking, and they could be the team that knocks out the Hoosiers on their first loss. So I do think the spread actually might make a little more sense there. And that might just be me reading into it, and you might just say you're crazy for that because earlier you always talk about how many points we score against the Ducks compared to the Ducks and stuff. So we'll see. But this might be close. This might be really fun.
Yeah.
Still Hoosiers. I'm going Hoosiers, but don't count out Michigan State until the fat lady sings.
I think no matter how close it is, it'll be a fun one to watch because, at least personally, I've been loving this IU team, just the way they play. Every time they show Cignetti on the sidelines, that's like it could be a potential meme moment. The man is built for the camera and built for press conferences. It seems like.
Oh yeah, he's running that city.
All right, one last 2:30 game here. We got the UCLA Bruins after a week off, freshly rested, going out to Lincoln and Memorial Stadium to take on the Nebraska Cornhuskers, who are favored at home by 6.5 in this one. How do you see this one playing out?
I see Ethan Garbers coming out and having a really good day. I see Dylan Raiola also having a really good day. And I think this might be an over hitting. The over is only at 40.5. I think both these teams can score 3 touchdowns easily. And then we're just talking like who shakes it out till the fourth quarter. So I think Nebraska does win this, especially after watching what just happened with their play against Ohio State at Ohio State. But it would be really cool to see a close one. I do think UCLA will take a loss. I'm going to end up being 2-6 on the year. So what do you have to say? I'm all Huskers.
Yeah, this one I'm curious. So I know, and we'll get into this when we talk about the Iowa game, but weather-wise, it's supposed to be kind of a wet one throughout the state of Iowa on Saturday. If it's wet in Lincoln and a little cool like it's supposed to be here, that 40.5 could maybe be right on the money. I think if you get good conditions, this could be a quarterback duel of the century. Got the young gun in Raiola and the kind of proven leader now in Garbers, and maybe rejuvenated after that unanimous big boy decision a couple weeks ago. But if weather's a factor, this could be just a gritty, pounded out Big Ten game. So we'll see. I like Nebraska in this one still. I think that defense is legit and really proved it versus Ohio State. And I like them to take care of business. Get them bowl eligible. It'd be their first time in a long time. And fans in Lincoln are itching for that. So give me the Cornhuskers.
Yeah, it's in their wheelhouse. Just got to get the job done.
Yep. All right, 2 more. We got the late ones here. We'll start off with the 6:30 BTN game.
Yeah, the West Coast matchup. We got Washington, USC. So I know it might be a night game for us, but it's only the mere afternoon for those boys out there. Matchup predictor has USC picking this like 2 to 3 or like 66%, 2/3, right? So, but the spread's only 2.5. I think Miller Moss has figured it out after this past weekend. I think USC is back to their old ways. I think Washington, both these teams are 4-4, so who knows what happens. But the reality is, like, if both these teams are 500 average teams and we're flipping coins, I'm still picking Miller Moss because I think he's just a little more consistent right now than Will Rogers has been, especially in Will Rogers' past couple games.
Yep.
That's where I'm at. Losing to IU, losing to Iowa, only scoring 16 points-ish, 17, that hurts.
Yep. No, I agree with you. I think on paper, USC is the better team going into the season. And I think even still now, like even QB versus QB comparison and Rogers versus Moss, I'd pick Moss. And I think most of America would too. So I think it comes down to that. USC is not at this point in the season where they thought they'd be as one of the front runners in the Big Ten. This is right around where Washington maybe was expected to be. Kind of picked to be a 7-5 or so team. They're at 4-4. They got a kind of ugly loss at Rutgers during the year that maybe didn't look as ugly at the time. And as we've kind of seen what that Scarlet Knights team is shaped up to be, it's more of a blemish on Washington's record. But they're kind of squaring, they are who we thought they were, whereas USC has kind of underperformed a little bit. And I think for that alone, USC being favored on the road by 2.5, I think is a kind of a testament to where the experts in Vegas think that these teams match up with each other. And I do like USC in this one, especially talked about Miller Moss so much. You had such a good game last week, and I think you can really keep that up versus that Washington D that's been exposed a few times already this season.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a good one to watch if you're able to. But the other 6:30 games going to be just as exciting.
Yeah.
Actually, we're stoked for this one because we're going to be out there, boots on the ground, for the first time in Iowa City this year. Wisconsin coming down to Iowa City, so we got the Badgers playing the Hawkeyes. Big game. We knew it was going to be a big game. We knew it was, this game's always got some implications to it.
Yep.
But now even more so with Cade probably out or maybe dual quarterback action here. And we've kind of played around with it. Iowa's kind of played around with this a couple of times already throughout the year. We've seen it, right? But especially how that second half of that last game went, it changes the run defense. It changes. I'm not saying they're going to be an option team, but it's really hard to play man-to-man defense all day long when you have two guys who can scramble or get yards through the backfield. So we'll see. Either way, it's going to be a good day for running backs. Tawi Walker and Caleb Johnson both are going to have success, I think.
Yeah.
It's just kind of how these games go. We'll just see what quarterback can stay afloat against both these good defenses. But I do think the spread being at 3 makes sense. It's going to be tight. I think Iowa has to win this. I think they're going to be bowl eligible with this win.
Yeah, that 3 at home for Iowa is really just, you kind of get that for home field advantage anyway. So really this game is right down the fairway for both these teams. I will say, you're talking about maybe dual quarterbacks. Cade McNamara is officially listed out, at least on the 2 deep that Iowa released yesterday or this morning or something like that. I saw it online.
And
so McNamara out. Yeah. McNamara out, Sullivan in. So getting a start for him and, playing full 4 quarters, I think will be fun to see where the rest of the year goes. And I definitely agree, like you said, having a eye 2 guys in the backfield if you're Wisconsin's defense makes it a lot tougher for them. I mentioned the weather in relation to the Nebraska game, but I've been watching it kind of all week to see what we have in store for us. They're calling for rain in like mid-50s. So just kind of what you picture when you picture classic Midwest fall football in a way. Not a heavy rain, just kind of a drizzle. Make it kind of tough to grip the ball, tough to catch, and really highlight that running back matchup that you talked about. I'll pick Iowa as the homer. I'll be disappointed if they lose, but I'll be going there with my girlfriend, a Wisconsin alumna herself. So
there you go.
I can't show that I'm too disappointed if Iowa loses and Wisconsin comes home with this one. It's a fun rivalry. Iowa's gotten the best of Wisconsin the last 2 years, and I think 3 of the last 4. But you go back kind of the last 20 years, and Wisconsin I think is ahead like 12 to 8 in that period. So really back and forth. 2 teams that really challenge each other. 2 teams that are kind of same DNA and how they play football and all that. That's always a fun one to watch, even as a neutral fan.
Totally, yeah, definitely. I don't want to say big brother, little brother, but 2 very similar styles of football, very similar campuses, very similar feels about what they bring to the table. So it's going to be awesome. It's going to be awesome to be there. Hoping we don't get rained on too hard. But regardless, we're going to see some good football. It is a blackout, so that's going to be sweet.
Yeah, it'll be fun.
And we'll be there. Right?
I got my black ready.
There you go. Did you say eye black?
I said no. Maybe I should bring some eye black. Who knows? But no, I have my black sweatshirt ready.
That's up to you. I'm never against the eye black. It works for some people.
Yeah.
But yeah, It's gonna be good. We'll be there. If you see us, come say what's up. I'm sure we'll run into plenty of fans and some people that we know. So that'll be awesome. But also keep letting us know. We had some pretty awesome feedback from some of the stuff on our posts recently.
Mm-hmm.
Make sure you're watching it on YouTube. Make sure you're letting other people know. Just love to hear what people have to say, even if they think we're absolutely wrong on this. But I think we've been kind of decent so far. I know a couple weeks ago, people reached out saying that we were kind of on fire. And I know you hear a whole lot more being back in Iowa with some of our buddies.
Yeah.
So we'll see. We'll see what happens this weekend. We'll see how we react. We're hoping it's going to be awesome. We might go live if it's the fourth quarter and it's deep and it's close. So you never know what happens in late night Iowa City.
That is true.
Alrighty. Well, that wraps up episode 8. Appreciate everyone for watching. Make sure to tell a friend. Make sure you watch your favorite Big Ten team. Best conference in the country right now. Best teams in the country right now. And let's say Indiana wins this week and they're not number 10. I'm shaving my chest. There we go. All right. Thanks for listening. Have a good one.
Yep. See you guys next week. Peace.